Hello, welcome to Record Sports Hotline Live. My name is Daniel Caw. I'm delighted as ever to be joined by the one and only Keith Jackson. Keith, how's it going?
Not bad, Dan. Quite a lot happening this afternoon in Scottish football, which is piquing interest. Some news for Celtic fans, for Rangers fans, and obviously there's been a bit of, I think, quite unexpected activity through in Edinburgh at Hibs. But yeah, we've got a few issues to get on
Yeah.
with tonight and get our teeth into, haven't we? And by the way, the small matter, as we were discussing at great length last night, of Scotland being two games away for a World Cup. So yeah, plenty to get cracked in about. Dan, where'd you watch that?
That reminds me, just before I forget, we need to book our flights. Just remind me, it's fine. The best place, I think, for us to start, Keith,
Easy,
is...
Tiger.
uh,
What have I told you about taking nothing for granted?
I know. In fact...
Especially not you getting a plane ticket.
I'll try and keep Scotland off my mind, but I'm nervous about those games. But I think the best place for us to start is Willie Collum, Keith, because I believe that although it is 10 days on from the game, there is now an update on the Auston Trusty decision.
Yes, interesting. My understanding, I've put a story up online. It's my understanding that Willie Collum will back his officials. I think it was Nick Walsh was the man in charge. Andrew Dallas was heading up the VAR operation at Clydesdale House. And although Rangers have obviously, pressed the nuclear button on this one, demanding talks with the SFA, which they then said were unsatisfactory. Then the key match incident panel seemed to back the Rangers' view that Auston Trusty should in fact have merited a red card in the Premier Sport League Cup semi-final, just shortly before half-time. Well, despite the KMI panel saying that, and despite Rangers then using the KMI's panel verdict to say, well, we want more talks and come back to the SFA. I don't know what they hope to achieve in this. I think we'll find out over the next wee while that Willie Collum has given his personal approval to the decision not to send Trusty off. And I think that although it's viewed by many people as a kick to the head, I think the feeling at the SFA, certainly with Willie Collum, is that there wasn't sufficient force or malice involved to trigger a red card decision. And so he's backing his men on it. So as angry as Rangers might be, and as many times as they want to write to the SFA to demand meetings and talks, I don't think they're likely to get any joy when the guy that's in charge of referees is about to give his backing to his officials by insisting publicly that they called it right. That the whole process was handled properly. There was no requirement for Andrew Dallas to ask Nick Walsh to go and look at the screen. And I think basically pretty much these guys are in the clear as far as their own SFA bosses are concerned. Now, I'm sure that won't make Rangers fans feel any better about it, or the Rangers hierarchy, who seem determined to get involved in kind of ping pong with the sixth floor of the SFA over this, have been for a while. But Willie Collum coming out and saying his guys were right to make the call. It was punishable only by a yellow card. Do you think that might put this whole thing to bed? I have my doubts.
We've got plenty of comments coming in already. If you want to have your say on this incident and anything else, then let us know and try and get involved in the conversation. John says, Keith, he says the KMI panel ruled 2-1 on the Trusty decision. Therefore, it was a subjective and debatable decision. And I would just tack on at the end. I mean, I don't want to go over was it not a red card, but I can understand why someone could look at it and go, a yellow was sufficient.
Yeah, and listen, there was plenty of opinions at the time. I tended to side towards you just can't kick somebody in the face
but it wasn't
deliberately.
It wasn't really a kick, was it? It was more of
a flicking of the boot. You can't do it.
You
just can't do it. And you've got to, when you're talking about endangering an opponent, the guys are wearing studs. How are you
Aye.
going to know what part of your boot's going to make contact with what part of the face? For me, it looked like, it was a deliberate action. It wouldn't have, if Trusty's own momentum had carried him into that collision, I would
Could have
have
been worse.
said, I don't see what the problem is there. It was the fact that Trusty didn't need to flick out that boot. It was needless. It looked deliberate.
It
And
was
I
really
think,
strange above it else. It was really odd.
well, it was really strange.
Aye.
And, you had people like Neil Lennon and Charlie Mulgrew at the game saying that was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so at the very least, I think my opinion at the end of it was he should have been sent off for sheer stupidity,
Yeah.
if not endangering an opponent. I don't know where that is in the rule book, um, but clearly, despite the many Rangers grievances, and what I'm what I'm a little bit uncomfortable with is this sort of suggestion from Rangers that this isn't to be viewed even as a one-off incident. There's something broader. There's a bigger pattern going on here. Well,
Yeah.
what we're saying, guys, what we're saying, because Scottish football has been through enough periods of people wrapping themselves up in tinfoil hats. We've been there. We've done it. It does the game no benefit. And I think Rangers would be well advised to step back from that narrative if that's the one that they're trying to paint. Because what they're saying, are you suggesting that Scottish football is corrupt?
Well,
Is
that's
that
that.
what the suggestion is?
That we've got
Because
comment. Sorry, Keith. Go
because
on.
because it wasn't right when it was stated previously. There was a period of time when Celtic were having to look up to Rangers in terms of their position in the league table over a number of years and the amount of trophies that Rangers, and that became a bit of a narrative around Celtic, and it also became a bit of a stick to poke Celtic with paranoia, and Rangers having been toppled off the top spot, they're now resorting to the similar sort of stuff, and I don't like it. I don't think it looks. I don't think it's the optics on it are good for Rangers or the people in charge of Rangers. I think they've got to be bigger and better than that.
Yeah.
And I think there is enough. Whether or not I think there was a red card, and I did. We had Des Roach on, and he almost came round to my argument before wobbling and going back to it was a booking.
Yeah.
I think you probably think it was a booking. I've heard other people say it was a red, but it's in that grey
Aye.
area
Aye.
as one of the guys said there. It's open to subjectivity.
Yeah.
There is no black and white and fast rule to it. I would have thought kicking somebody in the face deliberately would be a red card, but I also do get the argument. It's not without foundation. The argument that there was not the necessary amount of force or malice
Hmm.
in the action to constitute a red card offence. But I really do think it's toss of the coin stuff with this one.
Yeah.
So to start screaming conspiracy, as I said, it's not a good look.
No, I agree. What I was going to say there a moment ago was that Nick is
It's
one
not
of the
healthy either, Daniel,
no
because this is a sort of explosive environment in which we all have to work here,
the asylum.
particularly in this part of Scotland. So when the people are in charge of clubs are actually pandering a little bit to the sort of extreme end of their support and suggesting and validating opinions that there's a cabal of people out there that are out to work against the best interests of the football club. That's dangerous stuff, and we've seen what it's led to in the past. And people need to be very aware of that because I think it's really unhelpful, and it can lead people into dangerous situations. We don't need it. We just need
Yeah.
to be a bit more grown up about it. And the people that are running Rangers, they've got that responsibility to set the right tone.
Yeah. What I was going to say though there is that we do have some fans writing in. No, Keith, that I don't think there's any persuading them. Nick on your screen. Oh, Nick on your screen there, you can see it's not really about the incidents. A combination of incidents that seem to be going in Celtic's favour. Eck goes even further, saying Scottish football being corrupt. It's a fact. I mean, just to echo what you said there, that's are people honestly saying that there is a conspiracy? Everyone's getting together and going, right, listen, Rangers aren't getting it. I mean, of course not. I mean, that's mad to even suggest that.
Listen, see, to be fair, Daniel, there have been moments throughout the last 14 years of almost complete Celtic domestic dominance. Well, Celtic fans have been convinced, and they've went and said similar things. That's what happens with football
Yeah,
supporters who
yeah,
are highly charged, really passionate, and we commend Celtic fans and Rangers fans and fans at every club in Scotland for the passion that they've got for the football club. But it does open the door to outlandish suggestions from time to time. And the people that are in charge of running the ship should, as I said to you, be well advised to step back from it because it's unhelpful.
Yeah.
And all you're doing, if you're validating the opinions of people that genuinely think there's a corrupt cabal at the heart of Scottish football, and they're making decisions based upon, you know, the colour of the team that they support, it's nonsensical. As I said, it's nonsensical when Celtic fans come out and say stuff like this, even though they've won 13 out of the last 14 league titles. You can see from a Rangers point of view, they feel the world's been against them the last wee while. But, you know, I understand that too. But really, you've got to look closer to home for the answers. You know, there's a reason that Rangers are struggling again this season. It's bad choices made by them. So unless you're making every decision and getting everything spot on and appointing the right managers and spending the right right amount of money on the a real proper level of players to improve and progress, if you're doing all that and still not getting results, then maybe they might find something. But I tend to think if you're getting the vast majority of your decisions correct, you'll be okay and don't worry about referees' decisions because there's always going to be a grey area there. And I've knocked the referees over the head as much as anybody else because I don't think the standard in this country is very good. But
Yep.
I've never believed for a single second or bought in to any of the theories which says there's actually the game's bent. I don't believe that. I refuse to believe it. Because if I believe that, then we're as well just packing up, isn't we?
Going up the road, I know.
Yeah.
You're right. I think the best comment to end this on, and we're getting a lot of comments, is from Daz, who says Rangers not doing themselves any favours by not letting this go. The team has to move on. I'm sure Rule can do without it, which I think is a good
Well,
point.
do you know one of the things, and the late great Walter Smith would always say, do you know when you present as a manager an excuse or a reason for failure, then what you're doing is you're feeding that into your dressing room, and then if you don't get the 3 points in a big game, or if you don't win the trophy, or if you don't, then the players can fall back on, well, how are we supposed to? You know, we're knackered. We've been playing too many games. Or this. So that's what I'm saying. Examine what you could do better before you start throwing accusations around at what other people could do better. Because unless you've got your house in order, there's no point complaining that theirs over there, the neighbours, is a mess.
Yeah.
So that's my view. It's always been my view. And I think there's a real necessity because sometimes Scottish football can get dragged into a dark place by all this stuff. And then things start happening to people that's really regrettable on a human level. We don't need it. It's been a bit of a black mark against the game in this country. And I don't want to go back down that rabbit hole. I think the game's better off without it. And especially if the people in charge of making the big calls, the big decisions, look upon their own work with a bit more introspection before trying to pander. I mean, it's almost an excuse, isn't it? We're not doing well. It's not our fault, it's theirs. Well, it's not. Let's get that right. Willie Collum didn't appoint Russell Martin.
Very fair point. In the comments, James says, move on to the next one, Daniel. And Rebel says, this topic needs a red card. And so with that in mind, Keith, I feel I should move on to some other news, which was breaking earlier on this evening. Our esteemed colleague, Scott Burns, wrote Record Sport Online regarding Dyson Maeda. And any Celtic fans hoping that he'd maybe changed his mind, wanted to stick about in Glasgow a little bit longer. It doesn't look like that's the case.
Well, yes, according to Scott, and we've got no reason to doubt his information is usually absolutely spot on, and I'm sure this is as usual. It seemed to me from reading between the lines in the story that someone around Dyson Maeda's camp is happy for the news to get out there that the player might be starting to agitate a little bit as the January window edges closer. I'm not greatly surprised by that. We all know now the situation. It's been a long sort of running issue in terms of Dyson Maeda looking to get away, looking to do something new, interest in him from England. I think in the summer, as Burnsy said in his story, I think I'd heard at the time as well, think there was heavy interest from the Bundesliga. So I think there are options for Dyson Maeda, which, according to Burnsy's report tonight, suggests that these options haven't gone away. They remain live, and the conversations remain active and ongoing, heading towards the January transfer window. Now, that feels to me like a little bit of manoeuvring by agents and advisors, just saying, look, you kept him there pretty much against his will for the last at least one window, possibly two. You can't do that again because you're just going to have a really unsettled player in your hands.
Yeah.
And I think there's been signs, and I think Celtic fans have seen it for themselves. I don't think they're getting the best version of Dyson Maeda so far this season. So if they're agitating and trying to apply a bit of pressure, well, it's interesting to see what the club does about that. Obviously, Celtic have got decisions to make as well in terms of more pressing decisions on who the manager's going to be heading into that January transfer window, whether or not he has an influence on the buying and selling and the player trading model, who knows? But it's certainly an option that Celtic could do without right now because they've got so many issues, haven't they? Ongoing issues with injuries and key men not being available for selection. They don't have a permanent manager. This is just another thing to add to the sort of malaise around Celtic. So there's a lot of work to do for Celtic to come out of this in a better place, and to be able to lay down a real credible title defence. Because they just don't have their issues. Every day there seems to be something else that's causing a wobble or a concern within the club, and the fact that Dyson Maeda's people are now sort of bumping their gums a little bit in the background. Yeah, there's just another one to add to the list.
In the comments, John says Dyson wanted to move in the summer. If he doesn't want to beat Celtic, let him move in January. He's been a great servant, but not every Celtic fan, Keith, has seen it as that way. George says, let Maeda go. He's down tools. We all can all see that apart from his pace. He's brought zero to the team so far this season. David says Maeda doesn't possess the skills required to play in a top 5 league. In my eyes, if he leaves, he's not welcome back.
I think he's been you're always going to get this. Again, here we go. You get the extreme response from supporters, which is perfectly understandable, especially when it's a guy that's a fan's hero and he's done so much for the club. You're always going to get that. It feels like a betrayal. It's not quite like that in the professional game. These guys are in it to make a living, essentially. We've all seen how close Dyson Maeda is, what a phenomenal family man he is. If there's an opportunity here for him to move on and to look after generations of the Maedas,
Maedas.
then
Many Maedas, if you will.
You can't blame him, can you?
No.
But I understand that doesn't take away the sort of feelings that the Celtic fans will have that this guy might have been agitating, that he wasn't as committed to the cause as they would have expected. I think he has been up until this season, where I think there's been a noticeable drop-off now. For whatever that reason is, we don't know. You'd need to get inside Dyson Maeda's head for that. But there is a fair chance that this sort of protracted hokey-cokey around is he in or is he out isn't helping matters in terms of keeping them settled and keeping them focused. And if somebody out there, and we do believe that it is the case, that somebody out there, at least one club, is dangling a big fat carrot in front of them, it's going to act as a distraction. The question is, how determined are these clubs, and how far are they prepared to go? What does a bid for Dyson Maeda look like? What does it constitute in January? Because the sums need to make sense for Celtic as well as for Dyson Maeda before business can be done. And also, that would then be, you lose Kyogo in one January window and you lose Dyson Maeda in the next January window. And where are the replacements?
Yeah.
And who's in charge of making sure that when the window opens, if they do want to press the button and sell Dyson Maeda, they better hope that they've got at least one striker and at least one winger and a number of other various positions sorted out in advance, because I don't think that Celtic can even think about coming out of yet another transfer window in a weaker state than they were going into it. Because the Celtic fans, I think we can all see from the reaction, they're expecting at the very least a real strong January window to make up for the mistakes that have been made in the previous ones.
Yeah. David in the comments says Maeda should speak to his friends that left for a bigger club, i.e. Kyogo. And Paul there, P. McLaughlin says, I can't see Maeda moving now with the World Cup on the horizon. I must admit, I did think that perhaps with the World Cup, how much the Japanese players care about the World Cup, maybe he wouldn't want the turmoil of moving mid-season, but Scott Story today says otherwise.
Look, money talks. Money talks, and also Dyson Maeda, he is in a more comfortable position than Kyogo was in that regard, in that he was, almost 10 times out of 10, you would expect to see his name in the starting lineup for Japan.
Yeah.
He's really consolidated his position as a starter, and there are others, including Kyogo, who I think took that risk to move on in order to try and maybe upgrade their chances of getting international regular starting place, or just to fill the bank account. I don't know, whatever you fancy better. But yeah, there are decisions that look as if they're going to have to be confronted and dealt with over the coming weeks. And at a time when you've got your Cameron Carter-Vickers, Alistair Johnson, they bring Callum. Osmond, yeah. They find a place for him eventually, and he looks as if he might be a bit of a ticket. And he breaks down. There's just problems everywhere Celtic look right now. So they've got a lot of work to do, and I guess the first part of that will be selecting and securing the services of the new manager, whoever that might be, Dan.
Well, on that, Keith, another bit of Celtic news, which we've had on Record Sport Online.
I know,
today.
It was a nice segue, wasn't it?
It was lovely. It's like I don't want to go into it, but we are kind of pros now. The Celtic have begun. I said we're pros and then forgot the story. Celtic they've begun.
Amateur.
They've begun interviewing managers in London for the full-time permanent replacement of Brendan Rodgers. I know we've obviously mentioned some of the names that are in the frame, and actually it occurred to me that yesterday, Keith, I had a chat on the Record Celtic podcast with Chris Sutton, and he surprised me by saying he doesn't want Martin O'Neill to be asked to stay on longer. We can hear a wee bit of that if you'd like.
Yeah, I'd like to. That'd be good. Get Big Sutty on the show.
Let's hear what he had to say yesterday.
It's an interesting time because it's what happens now. Is it going to be Martin and Sean until the end of the season? Or there's a lot of speculation about a new manager coming in, isn't there?
We've talked about it a lot, Swanee, and obviously there's a few issues on the pitch that I wanted to get both your guys' take on. But as we've arrived at it, the Martin O'Neill question, what's your gut feeling? Do you think, as we sit here at the start of the international break, Martin O'Neill will be in charge for Celtic's trip to St Mirren?
I must admit, Daniel, when I saw him take in St Mirren against Hibs on Saturday night, given the fact that's Celtic's next two Premiership opponents, I did think that was looking likely. But speaking to him on Sunday, or listening to him speak after the game on Sunday, didn't seem quite as clear-cut. Listen, I'm sure we're going to go into this in some depth about the importance of possibly getting a manager in quickly with the January transfer window and all of that stuff. Do I think Martin O'Neill will be in charge until the end of the season? No. Do I think Martin O'Neill will be in charge basically in January? No. But could he be in charge for St Mirren? Yes. I know that sounds like sitting on the fence, but I've made the point that if Celtic identify a guy that they want, I've made the point in other shows that we do, if it's Kjetil Knutsen and it's January because he wants to finish the Champions League, Celtic should wait for him. And if that means asking Martin O'Neill to continue in the role, now, I'll go on for Martin. And Martin said that himself. That's not me being disrespectful. He's been plunged into this. He's charging all across Europe. It's been a very busy period. It's been tiring. He said himself, tiring. It would be an ask to go again through to Christmas because there's so many matches. But I think with Martin's connection to Celtic and the I don't think he would let the gift. What I'm basically trying to say is if the club come to Martin and say, will you continue for a little while longer? I don't think he would say no. Now, Chris is better qualified than me to talk about that. He knows Martin. Well, he played for him, as everyone knows. So he'll probably answer that better than me. But I wouldn't think Martin would say no if he was asked to continue for a little short term longer, just until Celtic get it organised. But in an ideal world, Celtic will get this new manager tied down and quickly.
Chris, I wanted, just before you come in on that there, look, I'm going to declare myself. I get everything about, he's obviously an older guy now, Martin. It's Swanee's spot on. It's so many games over, particularly over the festive period. And Chris, I heard you the other day on TV saying that, look, you know, he might, you know, there's a danger he could damage his legacy. But just personally, selfishly, I've loved having Martin O'Neill back on the touchline, and I love seeing him bouncing about. I would love the thought that perhaps there's another trophy, perhaps maybe even another league title in the Martin O'Neill story. I mean, have I been completely naive, or? No,
you're being optimistic, and it's a possibility. But you know, I've seen lots of stuff online about, you know, stuff I've said about you know, the possibility of Martin damaging his legacy. I mean, and people saying, well, that would never happen. But let's get it right. If you're sort of deep into February and Celtic, you know, don't win the League Cup, and there's, you know, St Mirren not doing particularly well in terms of their league position, but you know, the physicality they have, if they get O'Hara fit and Gogic fit and back into the team, they can be a really awkward team on their day. You know, everybody knows the way that they play, but they can cause Celtic, you know, numerous problems. But if you get sort of deep into February and you know, Europe hasn't gone well, and there's the odd slip up in the league, which is a possibility. Let's not pretend Celtic are not out of the woods yet. It's been encouraging that, you know, the domestic form, but we know what football fans are like. They want their, you know, there's, especially in recent years, there's been this expectation going into every season Celtic are going to win the treble. That's what you know, a large part of the fan base think, and that's the standards which Celtic have set in recent years. So if Celtic drop you know, below those standards, then I'm sure Martin will come in for criticism, and that's just the way it is. And you know, he's helped the club in their hour of need, coming in short term, but we know that the mood can change and it will change. And you know, I'm not gonna pretend otherwise. I hope it doesn't. I just, you know, I love Martin. You know, I love playing under him. He was always, I think, a lot of players, every player from that sort of generation would say how inspirational he was. And, you know, you'd run through a wall for Martin, but this is a different Celtic team to the one that he built. And it's you know, miles off the level of the team which Martin built back in the day. And I think deep down he will realise that. He says all the right things, but I'm telling you, Thursday night in Midtjylland, he'd have been sat in that dugout thinking, you know, blimey, you know, great start as it's been, and what have you. And he's not going to talk the team down. Of course he's not. But he'd have been thinking, we are miles short. So I think I agree with Craig. If Martin's asked to stay on, I think he will do it. But I hope he's not asked to stay on long term until the end of the season. But what is important, and you know, we've all got a different stances on this, is that the club make a decision and are decisive right now.
Chris Sutton there, Keith, and a couple of comments. Go on.
I'll make a first observation.
Go on.
You get a Christmas tree up.
Do you know, if anyone, you know, and it's an excellent podcast. It's out there if you want to listen to it. I did mention that to him at the start of the show, and he said, Daniel, do you think I got a say in what goes on in my house? I do not. So there you go.
Going early.
That's it. The comments that are coming in on this, Keith. Paul says Martin O'Neill's 73. I would give him till January. Nonce is odds on. Dermot says can see Martin O'Neill Maloney staying till the end of the season. In reality, it's Celtic not as appealing as people would like to believe. No disrespect. David says the boss doesn't believe he has a legacy. Davey says makes sense for Martin to stay till May, then go for the Bruges manager or Knutson. And Marzuno says I can't see anything putting a dent in O'Neill's legacy. Plenty of blame to go around. I think that's a good point, Keith. Like, you know, for instance, that game in Midtjylland last week, I don't think any Celtic fan, I could be wrong, but, you know, and I'm not speaking for the Celtic sport, but was sitting there going, oh, this is on Martin O'Neill, this.
No, I think they know what this is. It's a band-aid solution, to a temporary situation. But I think I get where Chris is coming from there. If it goes on any longer than that, if results start going awry, if the league starts looking as if it's disappearing over the horizon, if St Mirren were to win the League Cup, that's a lot of negatives. I get all that, but do you know what I mean? All of a sudden, he's not just good old Martin. He stepped up when it was required, and he's helped us out, and he's held the fort for a few weeks. Then it becomes. I still think that he's almost bomb-proof from it to an extent, because the board will get the blame for the fact that they've still got Martin O'Neill trying to hold the fort, even though at his age and it's stressful, and he shouldn't ever have to be put in that situation in the first place. So the board will get the brunt, the vast majority, in fact. But this is football. This is passionate. We've talked about this, Daniel. The fact is that so many people have got so many opinions. Martin O'Neill won't be bulletproof completely from it. If this season was to start to get away from Celtic, I think he'll be forgiven in the long run. I don't know if it damaged the legacy, but it might become uncomfortable in the here and the now. So I've come round to the conclusion, as much as I think there's a bit of a sentimentality ticket about Martin O'Neill staying in charge for the League Cup final, and maybe that will come around. But I don't think it should go on much longer than that now. I think Celtic need to get their ducks in a row and make a decision on who they want, and they need to provide a bit of clarity to Martin O'Neill, first and foremost, to let him know. I think there is a plan to sit down with Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney. I think they are now working their way through talks with candidates, but this has been on for a little while now. What they don't want to do is get themselves into the same sort of saga that we've seen across the city when Rangers have kind of botched their way through these situations. It is interesting that Wilfred Nancy, or Nancy, is the bookies' favourite. There is a link there, as I'm sure people know by now, between Paul Tisdale and Wilfred Nancy, and that his current assistant boss at Columbus Crew is Kwame Ampadu, father of Ethan Ampadu. Now, Kwame Ampadu was at Exeter when Paul Tisdale was at Exeter for a period as manager. I think Kwame Ampadu was the under-18s manager there for a number of years. So that's an interesting. That maybe is perhaps people are looking at it and joining dots that aren't there. But certainly the bookies have fancied him for a while as the choice. I've got this feeling, and I said to you about when I thought there was a conversation, a bit of back channeling with Craig Bellamy, that Paul Tisdale might have been leading the hunt and might still be very hands-on in terms of looking at candidates and vetting people. I think at the end of the day, I'll be surprised if this isn't a Dermot Desmond choice, if Dermot Desmond doesn't make himself the kingmaker, because he usually does, and especially at a time when Celtic can't afford, or he can't afford, to rely on other people's judgment. I can see Dermot Desmond eventually being the guy who makes the final call on this, regardless of whatever names are put in front of him. Usually Dermot Desmond gets what Dermot Desmond wants.
Yeah, absolutely. Viewers will be able to see, Keith, that we've been joined by a resident referee.
Outraged Des Roach. Well, while we were talking there, and I know, listen, I know we've got people on here saying, "Oh, we're not still talking about this, are we?" Well, we're going back to talk about it again, because Des wanted to get in touch. Des, you tell us what's your view on this? I've got the information. I think that Willie Collum will publicly back his officials for the decision to give Auston Trusty a yellow card in that League Cup or Premier Sports Cup semi-final. You at the time seemed to agree that was the right decision, and you and I batted it about a little bit. Where are you now?
I
don't mean
so you were a bit
geographically.
There, I hope you can hear me okay.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm in the car also. I'm coming to pick my son up from his sport. I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I said at the time to you guys after the game that on first viewing, I thought it looked a yellow card. But as soon as VAR has the opportunity to look at it, then I'm sorry, all bets are off. It's a red card. I know Keith was trying to take me down a route, and I was sticking to it by my own initial judgment. But everybody could see it's a red card. I mean, it's ridiculous. Auston Trusty, I think the best word, and Keith's beat me to it, it's a red card for stupidity, that he's moved his foot into the goalkeeper's head while Jack Butland has the ball in his hands. Now, it'd be very easy to sit there and go, oh, not there. Excessive force and brutality shouldn't come into it. The bare facts are that is a red card offence. And the fact that I heard it the other day there that this was going to be backed up really shocked me. And I think it makes a mockery of the whole SFA thing. And Willie's already said that the KMI panel don't hold jurisdiction over them. So what's the point in it? They're always just going to back their own guys. Nick Walsh has been his golden boy for years. Hugh Dallas was his mentor for a number of years. He's not going to go and stick the boot into the two of them. And I think he's diminishing the status and the responsibility that he holds if he cannot uphold that should be a red card.
What do you think, Keith?
Look, there's a lot to take in here. Obviously, Des feels quite animated about it. And I honestly, Des, I'm not trying to trip you up, but I do recall when you were on the show after the game, we talked about it.
Yeah.
And I kind of reached the conclusion that what you were saying was it's okay to kick another guy in the head. That's a bookable offence. So I'm struggling a little bit. If Willie Collum can take that position, having had time to look at it and all that, what's changed in your own mind that's taken you to a very different point of view?
No, so what I said at the time was, on my first viewing, I thought it was a yellow card, as I'm watching it as just as a punter at home watching it on television. But when I seen it on VAR and you seen the TV screen, that's when I said that I'm not going to be an after-timer. I agree that it should have been a red card at that moment in time when you see the viewing, because Nick didn't have the opportunity for that view. So that's where, and I agreed with you at the time. I said I'm not disagreeing that I didn't think it was initially, but when you're given the full evidence and you see it, it has to be a red card. So I was wrong in my initial assessment, and as I said, if I was called across by the VAR to come and look at it on a TV screen, I would have had an entirely different second opinion if I was given that option. And Nick Walsh wasn't given that option to come across and have a look at it. The decision was made for him.
So what do you think, Des? Is you know, as you're sitting there just now, you're kind of looking at how this is probably going to play out over the next couple of days. Is this just damaging whatever reputation our best ref Nick Walsh is meant to be, our best VAR operator, and our guy that is in charge of the whole refereeing department, Willie Collum? Are they blowing up their own reputation by sticking to this thing?
Personally, I think so, yes. Because it's like, think about it. If you sit an exam and you flunk it and then you get given the results after it, you can get to mark your own exam. They're still marking their own exam and getting it wrong. That's maybe the best. As I said to you earlier, when I first seen it, I thought it was a yellow card. I said on the show with yourself and with Daniel, I would like to have been given the opportunity to review it. And if I was given the opportunity to review it, I would have changed my decision. So that's why I wasn't going to be hypocrite. I wasn't going to be a hypocrite and say, no, I'm sticking with it. I'm sticking with it. If I was given the opportunity to review it, I would. I just don't understand why you've got the head of refereeing, you've got a FIFA referee, you've got a FIFA VAR assistant, and you've also got Stephen McLean in there, all vastly experienced guys. Why they're sticking to the same decision when nobody is backing that up, and nobody.
Who cops the most blame, Des? Before we let you go, who cops the most blame? Who's the most guilty out of the three of these?
I think Andrew Dallas. And I would put if you want, on the day Andrew Dallas on review, if Willie Collum's backing up, then he's the man that carries the can for it, because at the end of the day, he's the manager of the team, isn't he? He's the guy that picks these guys. He's the guy that puts these guys in these positions.
So he has to carry the can.
I just don't see. I would say so. Yeah, it's it's potential reputational damage, but that won't flinch.
That's a sentiment, guys, that's shared in the comments. Before I let you go, Des, I'll very quickly throw some of these at you. Green Machine says, I said right away, Red, if it was the other way around, I would want Suter off. This one here, Colin says, you can't blame Walsh. He's only had one look at it. It was Dallas and McLean at fault. Scott says, VAR needs binned, hasn't improved the refereeing or the game experience. Mark says the same. When do we decide enough is enough and scrap VAR? It's not fit for purpose. Craigie says, red card, dangerous play, simples. And Rebel says, I read War and Peace faster than this saga, which is a fair point. But I mean, I think most of our viewers are in agreement with Des, Keith, more or less.
Yeah. I'm glad that Des is in agreement with me as well. So everybody's singing for the same hymn sheet now.
Des,
but no, listen, it doesn't take
yeah.
away, and I think that the main issue being, you know, and as I said, you can argue black and white with this one all you want. You can, you know, batter it about from one version to the other. But I'm still not happy or comfortable with any suggestion that there's some corruption. Oh, Des.
Yep.
I think we've lost this. Oh, I'm just saying, I don't like this idea, which seems to be promoted in some corners, that this isn't just mistakes, it's something more sinister than that. There's some sort of corruption at play. I'm not buying that for a single second as a journalist.
No, there's no corruption at play. Absolutely not. If there's one thing that I can say about our referees and the people with the integrity, there's no subject there that they're wanting to force, or no side they're wanting to favour. It's just wrong. That's all it is.
Yeah, it's incompetence. It's not corrupt.
No, yes, I would. That was your word. I know how to pick these wee fishes out here now. Yes, it was just incompetence, and I can't.
Yeah, you've just said it anyway.
I think, as I said, first point. No, no, I said it was incompetence. I didn't say the other word.
Aye. Exactly.
I just think that, as I say, when I first seen it, I thought, okay, I would like to be presented with another view, and given the other view, I would have an entirely different opinion. But this just doubles down on it and thinking, why are you backing yourself into a corner when nobody can buy it from you?
Des, listen, thank you so much for interrupting your night there to join us. Your opinion on this is invaluable to help, you know, feed it into the talking points, but I'm kind of hoping that we don't need to talk about it ever again.
Des, thanks so much, Des.
Right, catch you soon, guys. I'm away to go and pick up my boy.
All the best, Des. Have a good night. Des Roach there, Keith. Always like a Des cameo.
Poor wee Des Roach Jr. standing somewhere shivering in a car park.
Well, you know, he's probably watching Hotline Live, to be fair, on his phone. And if he's not, he should be. That's almost the end, Keith. But one thing I wanted to bring up to get your take on is Bill Foley has sold his share in Hibs. It's 25% to the Gordon family. It never really worked out, did it? I mean, he's taken Bournemouth to the upper echelons of English football, but for whatever
I hope
reasons,
this isn't a mistake by Hibs. I really hope it's not a mistake. And I think the Gordon family probably a bit buoyed by the fact that Bill Foley made quite a big deal out of saying that he disagreed with some of the bigger decisions that were getting taken there and the running of the club, the management structure. And maybe, you know, Ron Gordon's sitting there now saying, well, see, we were right, because Hibs are you know, they encountered a difficult start to last season. They're looking good. They're up the right end of the table. They're building a bit of momentum. So maybe they think, look, you know, the road that you wanted to take us down was going to be detrimental to the long-term growth of the club. And if that's the case, and everybody's shaking hands, and it does seem to be an amicable split, then fair enough. But I would hate to think that Hibs have just kind of waved goodbye to a possible, the same sort of advantage that we know that Hearts are getting out of their relationship with Tony Bloom. now each relationship is different. Each vision for what these guys want to achieve by coming into Scottish football might differ slightly. But I think it was quite a healthy relationship, albeit clearly, Bill Foley felt that himself and I think it was the Black Knights consortium, they weren't getting enough say when it came down to some of the key decision makings. So maybe it was inevitable in the end. But I was quite excited about the idea of the link up in the first instance, same way as I'm excited about what Tony Bloom is trying to achieve at Hearts. And as I said, maybe the Gordon family feel that they know best now. And if they do, then good luck to them. I hope they're right.
Aye, absolutely. Keith, I think that brings to the end of Wednesday night's Hotline Live with Record Sport. Thanks very much for all the comments as ever. Massively appreciate them. We'll be back to do it all again at 6 p.m. tomorrow. We hope you can join us then. Keith, it's always a pleasure.
I'm not even sure if I'll be able to join you, given that I'll be 30,000 feet on my way to Athens, but I will certainly endeavour to be there in time. I'll tell the pilot to get a move on because we've got Hotline Live.
Get him on the hotline, actually. Find out what team he supports. And then
we'll probably not, Dan. I'll let him take care of flying a plane.
Okay, well, I'll be pestering you tomorrow. And if you're watching at home, hopefully you can join us then. I will definitely be there if Keith isn't. But, hope you can join us then.
I'll be there, Dan. I never let you down, mate.
I know. Thanks for watching.